Continuing with my half-year devlog schedule, welcome to Devlog 2. This one's going to be packed with info and important announcements, so buckle up. At the start of December in 2021, a little more than a month after Devlog 1 came out, Gribblesnap volunteered us to participate in the Rogue Jam. The Rogue Jam wasn't really a jam, but more of a general submit what you got competition hosted by the game publisher Rogue. Submissions were due at the end of that month, and the winners of each of the 5 categories would win a nice fat publishing deal with Rogue. I decided to go for it because I just wanted the little bit of publicity from being a part of a competition like this. A shout out or honorable mention or something. So we got to work. Features were decided on, a design document was made, and I spent a month straight working on getting something playable ready. We also managed to get the game composer Chuck Salamone of Hylix 2 fame onto the project. You can find the track that was made for the LAV section of the demo in the description. Finally, a playable demo was finished just in time. It lacked some major core features though, like blizzards, an inventory, and trader camps. And the maps were not the best, but at least the combat was decent. So it was quite a shock when I found out Rogue North was one of 3 games picked to compete in the huge potential category. I got to be interviewed by a number of people, including former Nintendo president Reggie Fils-Aimé. You can watch the episode I'm in on IGN's YouTube channel. I'll have a link for that down below as well. From submitting the game to the jam to when the show aired, 4 months of development had gone by. In that time, I've made many changes to the game's design, small and large. The most important addition being a backpack inventory. What you're seeing here was just a placeholder and is currently going through a total rework, but the main goal is accomplished. By having a small place to put things, the player can now hold medical items as well as weapons to use later on. Once physical ammo stacks and selling weapons to traders is added, the struggle of managing your backpack will increase the overall strategic depth of the game. The next big change is map design. The levels in the past builds, including the Rogue demo, felt quite small and limited. Some were technically large in overall size, but were too full of props and were quite linear. Having so many objects meant that you and enemies would always be close to cover, forcing the gunfights to be very close range, which results in a lot of unfun deaths from every single shot from an enemy hitting you. Going forward, new maps will have much more variety in scale, with some levels having large open spaces that make taking cover meaningful and rewards players who are good at burst firing. Now onto some smaller but still important changes.
I'm going to give you a complete curveball.
The largest of which being an edit to the identity of the enemy faction. During the Rogue Jam, I was thinking a lot more critically about the actual substance of the game. In my pursuit to make an intense survival shooter where avoiding fights is sometimes the best option, I accidentally made the combat incredibly satisfying. It just didn't make sense to have hundreds of normal Russian soldiers be so aggressive against a single guy. So one day in a call with the guys, Chuck ended up suggesting making them mercenaries, and that idea really stuck with me. Now, the overall story for these guys is that during the Russian invasion of Canada for their resources, mainly oil, the Russian military experienced a near total collapse due to rampant corruption. Most of their military dissolved into a rogue group that took over the captured oil rigs and refineries, with the goal of dominating the region, holding them ransom if you will. So there you go. I personally think having them be money and power driven mercs fits how they are portrayed in the game. And since they're not strictly the Russian military anymore, the door is open to having more interesting weapon, vehicle, and story possibilities. Speaking of weapons, with a shift in the design of the enemies, there's also been a shift in the design of the guns. In older builds, there were tons of weapons. Most of them were just made because I thought they looked cool, but that's all been scrapped in favor of building a more coherent, gameplay-first arsenal. Since the game takes place in an alternate modern-day Canada, I can play with the authenticity of the weapons a bit to suit the gameplay more. For example, I designed this little gun to replace the old AS Val. Its purpose is the same as the Val, hence the visual similarities. Its job is to be a quiet, suppressed gun. The reason for the replacement being the Val fires way too quick and uses rifle ammo, so the player that uses it would always burn through tons of their precious ammo. The solution? Slow down the fire rate and make it use more plentiful ammo types, like pistol ammo. If I just made those changes to the normal Val, it would completely go against how people expect the gun to behave, so I designed a new weapon to fit these specs. It's an excellent starter gun now. From now on, the plan is to mix in some original designs along with real ones for a bit of variety. The final thing I want to talk about is the new development plan for the game. The plan used to be create 3 different biomes for a large single-player campaign of sorts. The new plan is to split the game into 2 parts, a Part 1 and Part 2. Part 1 being set in the woodland area as well as the industrial tundra, the second biome. After Part 1 is finished, Part 2 would begin development, featuring the industrial tundra fading into the larger East Coast region, where the finale of the game would take place. Making the game more bite-sized will make things a little easier on us. Now, I can't give any release windows yet, as it's still much too early, but big things are happening for Rogue North and I can't wait to be able to share them. One of the things I can share is that there's now an official Rogue North Discord server. So come in and get sneak peeks at whatever's being worked on, as well as just hang out. Alright, that is it for me. There's a lot to talk about, but I try to compress it as much as I could. See you guys in 5 to 6 months.